The ship was falling apart. David Miller held onto his seat as fire and smoke filled the cabin around him. Warning lights flashed red. The computer voice kept saying the same thing over and over. Impact in 30 seconds. Impact in 30 seconds. David was not a soldier. He was not a pilot. He was just a botanist. A plant scientist. He had joined the research ship Horizon's Edge to study alien plants on distant worlds. He never thought he would die like this. The ship hit the ground hard. Everything went black. When David opened his eyes, he saw purple sky above him. His whole body hurt. He could taste blood in his mouth. He tried to move, but his legs were trapped under twisted metal. "Hello?" he called out. His voice was weak. "Is anyone there?" He heard footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Coming closer. David turned his head and saw them. His breath stopped in his chest. They were women, but they were not human women. They were tall. Very tall. The shortest one was at least 7 feet. Their skin was deep purple, like the sky above. Silver patterns covered their arms and faces, like beautiful tattoos that seemed to glow softly. They wore black armor that looked like it was made from some kind of dark metal. It covered their bodies but left their muscular arms bare. Each one carried weapons, swords, spears, things that looked like guns but much more deadly. David counted 6 of them. 6 giant warrior women looking down at him like he was an insect. One of them stepped forward. She was the tallest. Her golden eyes were cold and sharp. A long scar ran from her shoulder down to her elbow. She looked at David the way a person might look at a bug they found in their food. "A human," she said. Her voice was deep and commanding. "A male." Another warrior laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "Small, weak, look at him. He cannot even free himself from the wreckage. Should we kill him, High Commander?" asked the third warrior. The tall one with the scar thought about it. She tilted her head and studied David with those golden eyes. "No," she finally said. "Bring him. The Empress may want to question him about human movements in this sector." 2 warriors grabbed David and pulled him from the wreckage. He cried out in pain. His leg was hurt badly, maybe broken. They did not seem to care. They carried him like he weighed nothing. Because to them, he probably did. David learned later that he was on a planet called Verathis Prime. It was the home world of the Kelthari Empire. These warrior women had conquered dozens of star systems. They were famous throughout the galaxy for their strength and their cruelty. In Kelthari society, females ruled everything. Males were considered weak and useless. They were kept only for making babies. They had no rights, no voice, no power. And now David was their prisoner. They brought him to a great stone building. Inside, the walls were covered with weapons and the skulls of strange creatures. Everything was designed to show power and strength. There was no softness anywhere, no comfort. David was thrown onto the floor of a large hall. His injured legs screamed with pain. He looked up and saw he was surrounded. The 6 warriors stood in a half circle around him. In the center was the tall one with the scar. High Commander Nira, they called her. She sat on a chair made of black stone and looked down at him. "So," Nira said, "a human male, alone, far from home." She leaned forward. "Your species is weak. Your males are even weaker. You are small, soft, fragile. What use could you possibly be to anyone?" The other warriors laughed. One of them kicked David in the side. Not hard enough to break bones, but hard enough to hurt. David groaned and pushed himself up onto his knees. His whole body was shaking. From pain, from fear, from exhaustion. He looked at High Commander Nira. Then he looked at each warrior around him. He saw their armor, their weapons, their scars, their muscles. The way they stood with such confidence, such power. David had always been an honest man, sometimes too honest. His mother used to say his mouth would get him in trouble one day. She was probably right, but in that moment, looking up at these incredible beings, only one thought came to his mind. And because he was tired and hurt and probably going to die anyway, he said it out loud. "Wow," David breathed. "You are all absolutely magnificent." The laughter stopped. The whole room went quiet. So quiet that David could hear his own heartbeat. High Commander Nira stared at him. Her golden eyes went wide for just a moment. Then they narrowed with suspicion. "What did you say?" she demanded. David did not understand why everyone was looking at him like he had grown a second head. He was just telling the truth. "I said you are magnificent," he repeated. "All of you. I have never seen warriors like you before. The way you move, the way you carry yourselves. It is incredible." He looked at the warrior who had kicked him. She had 3 scars across her face and arms like tree branches. "Those scars," David said to her. "You must have faced something terrifying to get those. And you survived. That is amazing." The warrior took a step back. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. David looked at another warrior. This one was holding a spear with a blade that curved like a crescent moon. "That weapon?" he said. "The balance must be very difficult. You must have trained for years to use it so well. The skill that takes. I cannot even imagine." He finally looked back at High Commander Nira, at her scar, at her golden eyes, at the way she sat like a queen. "And you," David said, "that scar on your shoulder, that was not from a small fight. That was from something big, something dangerous. And you won. You are still here. You are still leading. That is extraordinary." Nira did not move. She did not speak. She just stared at David like she was seeing something impossible. The warrior beside her, a fierce-looking woman with silver hair, finally broke the silence. "He mocks us," she growled. But her voice was uncertain. "This is some human trick." "No trick," David said. He was confused now. Why were they so upset? "I am just saying what I see. You are warriors, strong, powerful, beautiful in the way that storms are beautiful, dangerous and amazing at the same time." Silence again. David noticed something strange. Some of the warriors were not looking at him with anger anymore. They were looking at him with something else, something he could not name. High Commander Nira stood up slowly from her stone chair. She walked toward David until she was standing right in front of him. She was so tall. He had to crane his neck to see her face. "No one," she said quietly, "has ever spoken to us this way." David blinked. "What way?" "Like we are." She stopped. She seemed to be searching for a word she had never used before. "Like we are worth looking at, worth admiring." "But you are," David said simply. "Anyone with eyes can see that." Nira stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to her warriors. "Take him to a cell," she ordered. "A clean one. See that his wounds are treated." The silver-haired warrior looked shocked. "High Commander? He's just a prisoner. A human male." "I know what he is," Nira said. Her voice was strange, softer than before. "Do as I say." As the warriors lifted David and carried him away, he saw Nira watching him. Her face was still hard, still cold, but something in her golden eyes had changed. David did not know it yet, but his simple words of praise had started something that would change the entire Kalthari Empire, something that had never happened before in their long history. He had made them feel seen. And for warrior women who had only ever been feared, that was more powerful than any weapon. High Commander Nira could not sleep that night. She lay in her chambers, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the human's words. Magnificent, extraordinary, beautiful. Like a storm. No one had ever said such things to her. Not once in her 120 years of life. In Kalthari culture, warriors were tools. They were weapons to be used. They were judged by their victories, their kills, their conquests. A good warrior was one who brought fear to enemies. A great warrior was one who brought death. Beauty was for the weak. Compliments were insults. If someone called you pretty, they were saying you were soft, useless, not worthy of respect. But the human had not said it like an insult. He had said it like it was simply true. Like he was describing the color of the sky or the heat of the sun. Just a fact. Something obvious that everyone should see. Nira touched the scar on her shoulder. She had gotten it when she was young. A thornback beast, 3 times her size, had attacked her patrol. She had killed it alone after it slaughtered 4 of her sisters. The scar was proof of her victory, but no one had ever called it extraordinary before. No one had ever looked at it with admiration instead of cold respect. The human confused her, and Nira did not like being confused. The next morning, she visited his cell. The human was sitting on a simple bed. His leg had been wrapped in healing bandages. He looked tired and pale, but he was alive. When he saw Nira enter, he did not cower or look away. He just looked at her with those strange, soft eyes. "High Commander," he said, "thank you for the medical care. And for the clean cell. You did not have to do that." Nira crossed her arms. "I have questions, human. My name is David," he said. "David Miller. I did not ask for your name." "I know. I just thought you might want to know it." He smiled a little. "What are your questions?" Nira studied him. He was so small, so weak. His arms were thin. His body was soft. He would not last 10 seconds in combat against even the weakest Kalthari child. And yet, he sat there smiling at her. Not afraid. Not begging. Just calm. "Yesterday," Nira said slowly. "The things you said, were they lies?" David looked confused. "Lies? No. Why would I lie?" "To manipulate us. To save your life. Humans are known to be clever with words." David shook his head. "I said those things because they were true. You and your warriors are impressive. I have studied many species in my work. I have never seen anyone like you. Your work? I am a botanist, a scientist who studies plants. I was on my ship to study alien plant life on different worlds." Nira almost laughed. A plant scientist. Not even a warrior or a pilot. Just a man who looks at flowers. "Plants are important," David said. He did not seem offended. "They give us food, medicine, air to breathe. They are strong in their own way. Quiet strength." "There is no such thing as quiet strength," Nira said. "Strength is loud. Strength is victory. Strength is standing over your enemy's body." David thought about this. On Earth, we have a saying. The tallest tree catches the most wind. Sometimes the strongest thing is not the thing that fights the hardest. Sometimes it is the thing that bends but does not break. Nira did not know how to respond to this. It went against everything she had been taught. The door to the cell room opened. Vex, her second-in-command, walked in. The silver-haired warrior looked surprised to see Nira there. "High Commander," Vex said. "I did not know you were here. I came to check on the prisoner." Nira noticed something strange. Vex was not looking at David with hatred anymore. She was looking at him with curiosity. Maybe even something else. "Ask your questions, Vex," Nira said. "I want to hear them." Vex hesitated. Then she stepped closer to David. "Yesterday, Vex said. You said things about each of us. You noticed details. Small things. How? David shrugged. I pay attention. It is part of being a scientist. You observe. You notice. You appreciate what you see. Appreciate. Vex repeated the word like it was foreign. You appreciated us? Yes. Is that unusual? Vex and Nira looked at each other. Neither knew what to say. Over the next few hours, something unexpected happened. More warriors came to the cell. They said they were there to guard the prisoner, to question him, to make sure he was not planning escape. But really, they came to hear him talk. David told them about Earth, about blue oceans and green forests, about cities full of millions of people, about art and music and poetry. What is poetry? Asked a warrior named Vera. She was young, only 60 years old, with bright golden eyes like Nira. Poetry is words arranged in a beautiful way, David explained. We use them to express feelings: love, sadness, joy, wonder. Feelings are weakness, Vera said. But she did not sound sure. On Earth, we believe feelings are strength, David said. It takes courage to feel. It takes bravery to admit when something is beautiful. Anyone can destroy. It takes true strength to create, to appreciate, to love. The warriors listened in silence. These were ideas they had never heard before. Ideas that went against everything their society taught them. But something about the way David spoke made them want to listen more. Later that day, Nira found herself back at the cell. Vous savez, with the cell. She had told herself she was just checking on the prisoner, making sure he was secure. But really, she had more questions. Your people, she said. Do they really tell each other these things? These compliments? Yes, David said. All the time. We tell our friends they are kind. We tell our family we love them. We tell strangers that we like their smile or their clothes or the way they laugh. Why? Because it feels good, both to say it and to hear it. It connects us, makes us feel less alone. Nira was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked something she had never asked anyone. What did you see? When you looked at me yesterday, what did you really see? David looked at her carefully. Not at her armor or her weapons or her rank. At her. I saw someone strong, he said softly. Someone who has fought hard and sacrificed much. Someone who carries heavy responsibility on her shoulders. Someone who protects others, but has no one to protect her. He paused. I saw someone who might be very lonely. Nira felt something crack inside her chest. A wall she had built long ago. A wall that kept everyone out. That kept her safe. That kept her cold. You know nothing about me, she whispered. But her voice was shaking. Maybe not, David agreed. But I know what I see. And I see someone who deserves to be seen. Really seen. Not just feared. Nira turned and left the cell quickly. She did not want the human to see the tears forming in her golden eyes. That night, she dreamed of Earth, of blue oceans and green forests, of a world where people told each other kind things, where strength was not just about killing, where warriors could also be beautiful. When she woke up, she made a decision. She would learn more about this human and his strange ideas, because for the first time in her life, High Commander Nira wondered if there was more to strength than she had been taught. And that wondering scared her more than any battle ever had. Word spread through the warrior ranks. The human who spoke kind words. The human who noticed them. The human who was not afraid. They did not understand him, but they wanted to. And that wanting was already changing them in ways none of them could see yet. The small, weak plant scientists from Earth had planted a seed. And seeds, as David knew better than anyone, had a way of growing into something much bigger than they first appeared. 7 days passed. Then 14. Then 30. David Miller was still a prisoner, but his cell had become something else. It had become a classroom, a meeting place, a strange kind of sanctuary where Kelthari warriors came to hear ideas they had never heard before. Every day, someone new would come. They always had excuses. They were checking on security. They were making sure the prisoner was behaving. They were following orders, but really, they came to talk, to listen, to feel something they could not name. Tessa was one of the regular visitors. She was young by Kelthari standards, only 55 years old. She was also small, only 6.5 feet tall. In a society where size meant everything, being small was a curse. Her whole life, Tessa had been mocked. Too short, too weak, not a real warrior. She had trained twice as hard as everyone else just to be considered acceptable. But acceptable was all she would ever be. Never great, never respected, never enough. She was assigned to guard David at night. It was considered a low job, guarding a weak human male. But Tessa did not mind. She liked listening to him talk. On Earth, David said one night, some of our greatest warriors were not the biggest. There was a fighting style called Jiu-Jitsu. It was created so smaller people could defeat larger opponents. Speed and technique against strength and size. Tessa leaned forward. Smaller people defeating larger ones? That is impossible. Not impossible. Just different. The smaller fighter uses the big fighter's own weight against them. They move faster. They find weak points. They win not by overpowering, but by outsmarting. Tessa thought about this. Her whole life, she had tried to fight like the larger warriors, to match their strength, to hit as hard as they did. And she always lost. But what if she fought differently? Your size is not a weakness, Tessa, David continued. It is a gift. You can move faster than the others, fit into spaces they cannot, react quicker, see angles they miss. You just have to stop trying to be them and start being you. No one had ever said anything like this to Tessa before. Her whole body felt strange, light, like a weight she had carried her entire life was suddenly gone. Why do you say these things? She whispered. Why do you care about a Kelthari warrior? David smiled gently. Because everyone deserves to know their worth. You have been told all your life that you are less. But you are not less. You are different. And different is not bad. Different is just different. Tessa did not know what to say. So she just sat there in silence, feeling something warm grow in her chest. Something that felt almost like hope. High Commander Nira noticed the changes in her warriors. It was small at first, subtle, but she saw it. Warriors who used to snap at each other now spoke more softly. Soldiers who used to fight over glory now worked together more smoothly. The constant tension that filled their ranks seemed to be lessening. And everywhere, she heard whispers about the human. The strange human who said nice things. The human who saw them as more than just weapons. Nira visited David again. She had been visiting more often now. She told herself it was to gather intelligence, to understand the enemy. But she knew that was not the whole truth. You are changing them, she said, standing in his cell. My warriors. They are different. David was sitting on his bed, sketching something on a piece of paper they had given him. He looked up at her. I am just talking to them, he said. That is all. No, it is more than that. Nira stepped closer. You are putting ideas in their heads. Ideas that could destroy our way of life. What ideas? That they are beautiful. That they have value beyond their fighting ability. That strength is not everything. David set down his paper. Are those bad ideas? Nira opened her mouth to say yes. Of course, they were bad ideas. They went against everything the Kelthari Empire stood for. Softness led to weakness. Weakness led to defeat. Defeat led to extinction, but the words did not come out. Because deep down, in a place she had kept locked for 100 years, Nira was not sure anymore. My people have survived for 10,000 years, she said finally. We have conquered star systems, built an empire. We have done this through strength, through hardness, through removing all weakness. And are you happy? David asked. The question hit Nira like a physical blow. Happy? Happiness was not something Kelthari thought about. They thought about victory, about honor, about duty. Happiness is irrelevant, she said. But her voice sounded hollow. Is it? David stood up slowly. His leg was healed now. He was still so small compared to her. So fragile. But his eyes held something her eyes did not. Peace. What is the point of conquering the galaxy if you are miserable? What is the point of being strong if you are alone? We are not alone. We have our sisters. Our empire. Do you? Can you talk to your sisters about your fears? Your doubts? Can you tell them when you are tired or sad or scared? Or do you have to be strong all the time? Perfect all the time? Nira said nothing, because the answer was obvious. She could never show weakness. Not to anyone. One moment of doubt and she would lose everything. Her position, her respect, her life. On Earth, David said softly, we have learned that true strength comes from connection, from being able to be vulnerable with people who love us. The strongest humans I know are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who fall and let others help them stand back up. Nira felt her hands shaking. She clenched them into fists to hide it. You do not understand our ways, she said. You are an outsider, a prisoner. Maybe that is why I can see things you cannot, David replied. Sometimes you need someone from outside to show you what you have missed. He reached down and picked up the paper he had been drawing on. He handed it to Nir. It was a sketch of her, but not in her armor, not with her weapon, just her face. And she was smiling, a soft, gentle smile that looked strange and unfamiliar. I imagined what you might look like happy, David said. I hope someday I can see it for real. Nira stared at the drawing. Her throat felt tight. Her eyes felt wet. No one had ever drawn her before. No one had ever looked at her and imagined her happy. She turned and left without saying a word. She walked through the stone halls of the fortress with the paper clutched in her hand. When she reached her chambers, she closed the door and looked at the drawing again. The woman in the picture was beautiful. Not fierce, not terrifying, just beautiful, at peace. Content.nir wondered if that woman could ever be real. If she could ever let herself be that person. For the first time in her long life, she wanted to find out. That night, she did something she had not done since she was a child. She cried, not from pain or anger, but from something else entirely. From hope, from wanting, from the first cracks forming in the walls around her heart. The human had done what no enemy army ever could. He had made her want to change. Not through force, not through fear, not through kindness. And that terrified her more than any battle ever had. But it also excited her. Because if she could change, maybe her whole empire could too. Maybe there was another way to be strong. A way that did not require being cold, being hard, being alone. Maybe the small human with the gentle eyes was showing them a path they had forgotten long ago, a path back to feeling alive. The message came from the capital, from the Empress herself. Bring the human. I wish to see him. Nira read the order 3 times. Her hands were cold. The Empress wanted David. That could mean only one thing. Someone had told her about the changes, about the strange ideas spreading through the warrior ranks, about the human who spoke kind words, and Empress Cathra did not like change. Cathra, the unyielding, had ruled the Kelthari Empire for 300 years. She had crushed 12 rebellions, conquered 30 star systems, killed more enemies than anyone could count. She was ancient, powerful, and absolutely ruthless. If she saw David as a threat, she would destroy him without a second thought. Nira found David in his cell, reading a book they had given him about Kelthari history. He looked up when she entered and smiled. That same gentle smile that always made her feel strange. "You have been summoned to the capital," Nira said. "The Empress wants to see you." David's smile faded. He understood what this meant. "I see. I will be taking you there myself, along with Vex and Tessa." David nodded slowly. "Then I suppose this might be goodbye." "Do not say that." Nira's voice was sharper than she intended. "You do not know what will happen. I know what usually happens when someone threatens the old ways. I have studied history, on Earth and here. Leaders do not like change, especially change they did not control." Nira wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but she could not, because he was right. Thought the journey to the capital took 2 days. They traveled on a fast ship, flying over endless purple plains and black mountains. Tessa sat with David most of the time, talking quietly. Vex watched from a distance, her face unreadable. Nira stayed apart from everyone. She was thinking, planning, trying to find a way to save the human who had somehow become important to her, but she could think of nothing. Against the Empress, there was no winning. There was only obedience or death. When they arrived at the capital, David looked up at the massive palace with wide eyes. It was built from black stone that seemed to drink the light. Giant statues of warrior queens lined the entrance. Everything about it screamed power and fear. "It is beautiful," David said quietly. Nira stared at him. Most beings tremble when they see this place. They beg, they cry. "And you call it beautiful?" "It is, in a terrifying way, yes. But beautiful. Your people built this. They created something that will last for thousands of years. That is impressive." Nira did not know how to respond. Even now, walking toward possible death, the human found things to admire. They entered the throne room. It was vast. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. Torches cast flickering shadows on the walls. And at the far end, on a throne made of bones and black metal, sat Empress Cathra. She was old. Older than anyone David had ever seen. Her purple skin was faded, almost gray. Her silver patterns had dulled with age. Scars covered every visible part of her body. Her eyes were like dying stars, once bright, but now cold and dim. But she was still terrifying. Power radiated from her like heat from a fire. David was pushed to his knees before the throne. Nira and her warriors stood behind him, heads bowed. "So," Empress Cathra spoke. Her voice was rough, like stones grinding together. "This is the human who has infected my warriors with weakness." David looked up at her. Most beings would have looked away, would have trembled. But he met her gaze directly. "Your Majesty," he said, "it is an honor to meet you." Cathra laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. "Honor? You are a prisoner. A pet. A thing. There is no honor in this for you." "There is honor in meeting someone who has lived 3 centuries, David replied calmly. "Someone who has built and protected an empire for longer than my entire country has existed. Whatever happens to me, I wanted to see you, to understand you." The throne room went silent. No one had ever spoken to the Empress this way. With curiosity instead of fear, Cathra leaned forward on her throne. They say you have a silver tongue, human, that you weave words like weapons, that you make my warriors feel things. She spat the last word like it was poison. I only tell them the truth, Your Majesty. Then tell me the truth. Catherine's eyes burned into his. Try your tricks on me. Make me feel something. I dare you. David was silent for a long moment. He looked at the ancient empress. Really looked at her. Not at her power or her throne or her scars. At the person underneath, he saw exhaustion. 300 years of weight pressing down on old shoulders. He saw loneliness. A woman who had never had an equal. Never had a friend. Never had anyone who was not afraid of her. He saw pain. Centuries of loss and battle and sacrifice. He saw a soul that had been burning for so long it had almost forgotten what warmth felt like. Your Majesty, David said softly, I see a woman who has given everything to her people. Every scar on your body is a sacrifice you made for them. Every year of your reign is a burden you have carried alone. Catherine's eyes widened slightly, just slightly. But David saw it. I see someone who has been strong for so long that she has forgotten it is okay to be tired. Someone who has protected everyone, but has no one to protect her. Someone who is surrounded by millions of people, but is completely alone. The throne room was deathly quiet. Even Nira held her breath. I think you must be very tired, Your Majesty, David continued. And I think you have been incredibly brave for a very, very long time. Braver than anyone gives you credit for. Because it is easy to be strong when you have support. It is much harder to be strong when you have no one. Catherine's hands gripped the arms of her throne. Her ancient body was trembling, but not with anger. How dare you, she whispered. But there was no force behind the words. I am sorry if I have offended you, David said. But you asked for the truth. And that is what I see. A great and powerful queen who deserves rest. Who deserves kindness. Who deserves to be seen as more than just a weapon. A single tear slid down Catherine's weathered cheek. Just one. But it was the first tear she had shed in 200 years. What manner of creature are you? She asked. Her voice was barely a whisper now. Just a human, Your Majesty. From a small blue planet far away. A planet where we learned long ago that strength without kindness is empty. That power without love is lonely. That the bravest thing anyone can do is open their heart to another person. Catherine stared at him for a long, long moment. The silence stretched on. Everyone in the room was waiting for her to order David's death. But she did not. Instead, she stood up slowly from her throne. Her old bones cracked and popped. She walked down the steps, one by one, until she was standing right in front of David Dodd. She was shorter than the other Kelthari now. Age had shrunk her, but she was still taller than him. She looked down at his upturned face. In 300 years, she said quietly, no one has ever spoken to me like that. No one has ever seen me. Just me. Everyone deserves to be seen, Your Majesty. Even empresses. Especially empresses. Catherine reached out with one old, scarred hand. She touched David's face gently, studying him like he was some impossible thing. You will not die today, human, she said finally. Instead, you will teach me more. You will teach all of us more. She turned to face her throne room, her warriors, her empire. Perhaps it is time for the Kelthari to learn new ways. Perhaps we have been strong for so long that we have forgotten how to be alive. Mira felt tears streaming down her own face. She had never seen the Empress vulnerable before. Had never thought it was possible, but the small human had done it. With nothing but words. With nothing but truth. He had made the most powerful being in the Empire feel something she had forgotten existed. Hope. And in that moment, everything changed. The Kelthari Empire would never be the same again. 1 year later, a fleet of Kelthari ships appeared in Earth's orbit. The whole planet panicked. Weapons were readied. Prayers were said. Everyone prepared for the end of humanity. But the end never came. Instead, the Kelthari sent a message. They did not want war. They wanted to talk. They wanted an alliance. World leaders could not believe it. The Kelthari Empire, the most feared military power in the known galaxy, was asking for peace. It seemed impossible. It seemed like a trick, but it was real. David Miller stood on the landing platform as the first Kelthari shuttle touched down on Earth. He was wearing a simple suit now, not the torn clothes he had worn when he crashed on Varathis Prime. His hair was combed. His shoes were polished. He looked like a diplomat, not a botanist, because that was what he was now. The first human ambassador to the Kelthari Empire. The shuttle doors opened. Out stepped High Commander Nira, then Vex, then Tessa. Behind them came other warriors David had met during his time as a prisoner. They looked different now. Still tall, still strong, still carrying weapons. But something in their eyes had changed. They looked lighter, like heavy chains had been removed from their shoulders. Nira walked up to David. She was still 7 feet tall. He still had to look up to see her face. But there was no coldness in her golden eyes anymore. "Ambassador Miller," she said formally. "It is good to see you again." David smiled. "It is good to see you too, High Commander. How was the journey?" "Long, but we had much to discuss." She glanced back at her warriors. "Many things have changed since you left." That was an understatement. David had heard reports from the few human diplomats already working with the Kelthari. Warriors were treating each other differently now. Males were being given more rights. The word for beautiful was being spoken out loud for the first time in centuries. Change was slow. Generations of conditioning could not be undone overnight. But it was happening. The formal ceremonies took hours. There were speeches and documents and handshakes and bows. Leaders from both species talked about peace and cooperation and mutual respect. But the real conversations happened later. In a quiet garden on the edge of the meeting facility, David sat on a bench, looking up at the stars. Nira sat beside him. For a long time, neither spoke. They just enjoyed the silence together. "My warriors are different now," Nira finally said. "They complement each other. They say kind things. Some have even started making art." She paused. "Art? Can you imagine?" "Kelthari warriors painting pictures." David laughed softly. "That is wonderful. It is strange. Strange and wonderful." Nira looked at her hands. "I gave a compliment yesterday to a young warrior who did well in training. I told her she was skilled and that I was proud of her. How did she react?" "She cried. And then she hugged me." Nira shook her head. "I did not know what to do. I have never been hugged before. Not by anyone. Did you like it?" Nira was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly she nodded. "Yes, I think I did." They sat in comfortable silence again. The stars twinkled above them. Somewhere in the distance, music was playing. Human music. Some of the Kelthari delegates had never heard music before. They stood listening with looks of wonder on their faces. "I have thought about our conversations often," Nira said. "About the things you taught me. About strength and kindness. About seeing people as more than weapons. And what have you concluded?" Nira turned to look at him. Her golden eyes were soft in the starlight. "I have concluded that you were right. We were strong for 10,000 years. But we were not alive. We were machines. Killing machines. Nothing more." She reached out and took David's hand in hers. Her hand was huge compared to his. Strong enough to crush bones. But her touch was gentle. You gave us back something we had lost, she continued. Something we did not even know was missing. You gave us our hearts back. David squeezed her hand. I did not give you anything. I just helped you remember what was already there. Across the garden, Tessa was showing a group of human children some basic fighting moves. The children were laughing and trying to copy her. Tessa was laughing too. Actually laughing. The sound was strange coming from a Kelthari warrior. But it was beautiful. Vex was standing with some human soldiers, discussing combat techniques. But between the tactical talk, they were joking, sharing stories, connecting. Everything David had hoped for was coming true. Two species that should have been enemies were becoming friends. A culture of hardness was learning softness. A culture of fear was learning love. The Empress herself had sent a personal message to Earth's leaders. She had thanked them for raising a human like David Miller. She had said that he had given her something priceless. A chance to rest. A chance to be seen. A chance to feel something other than duty. She had even made a joke in the message. A small one. But it was the first joke an Empress of the Kelthari had ever made in recorded history. Change was happening. Slow and strange, and sometimes scary. But happening? David, Nira said. May I ask you something? Of course. Why did you do it? When you were captured, you could have stayed quiet. Could have been a good prisoner. Could have waited for rescue. Instead, you spoke. You said things that could have gotten you killed. Why? David thought about the question. He thought about that first moment when he looked up and saw those magnificent warrior women towering over him. He thought about the words that had come out of his mouth without planning. I guess I just could not help it, he said finally. I saw something amazing, something beautiful, and I needed to say so. That is just who I am. On Earth, we call it being authentic, being true to yourself. Even if being authentic gets you killed? Especially then. What is the point of living if you cannot be yourself? If you have to hide what you feel? If you have to pretend not to see beauty when it is right in front of you? Nira nodded slowly. Humans are strange creatures, so I have been told, but also wonderful ones. She paused. I think that is the first compliment I have ever given to an entire species. David grinned. See? You are getting better at this already. Nira laughed. Another strange and beautiful sound. Then she did something that surprised them both. She hugged him. It was awkward. She was so much bigger than him. Her armor was hard and cold. She did not quite know where to put her arms, but it was perfect. Thank you, David Miller, she whispered. For everything? David hugged her back as best he could. Thank you for listening. They stayed like that for a long moment. Two beings from different worlds, different species, different cultures, connected by something stronger than all their differences. Kindness down above them. The stars shone bright. Human stars and Kelthari stars, all part of the same galaxy, all part of the same universe. And in that universe, something new was growing. An alliance built not on fear or power, but on respect and appreciation and genuine connection. All because one small, human botanist had looked at a group of terrifying warrior women and said the simple truth, you are magnificent. And in the end, that had been enough to change everything. Sometimes, the mightiest weapon in the universe was not a blade or a gun or a fleet of warships. Sometimes it was simply being kind. Sometimes it was simply seeing beauty in others and having the courage to say it out loud. The galaxy was learning that lesson now, slowly, awkwardly, one compliment at a time. And humanity, that small soft species from a small blue planet, had taught them, not through war, not through technology, not through power. Through love, through hope, through the simple act of making others feel seen, That was humanity's gift to the stars, and the stars would never be the same again.